The legislative proposal outlines cost estimates, organizational details, and personnel plans for the Space Force, which will be housed under the Air Force. But it will now be up to Congress to authorize those plans in the 2020 National Defense Authorization Act and bring Space Fore to life. Here's how the Pentagon hopes to stand up Space Force. When Space Force is complete, the Pentagon believes it will have about 15,000 personnel, including enlisted, officers, and civilians. Most of these people will be transferred into the Space Force from the departments of the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Still, at 15,000, the Space Force will be the Pentagon's smallest service. It's a small but mighty group, one official told reporters. The Pentagon's plan estimates it will cost $72 million in fiscal year 2020 to establish Space Force headquarters at the Pentagon with about 200 personnel. Then, beginning in 2021, space-related units from the Air Force will transition under the Space Force, followed by space personnel from the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps in 2022. It will take some time, one official acknowledged. The Pentagon estimates that total additional cost growth over those first 5 years will be about $2 billion. Once Space Force is fully up and running, additive costs will be about $500 million per year, officials said, which is about % of the Defense Department's annual budget. The new service will have an Undersecretary for Space who reports to the Secretary of the Air Force, as well as a 4-star Chief of Staff of the Space Force who will sit on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It was only 1 year ago when President Donald Trump first mentioned the concept of a new space-focused military branch. Space is a warfighting domain just like the land, the air, and sea. We may even have a Space Force, Trump said during a speech to troops at Marine Corps Air Station Miramar in California last March. We have the Air Force, we'll have the Space Force, the president said, adding, "I was not really serious, but then I said what a great idea." The current structure for Space Force is not the separate but equal branch that Trump had originally directed, but officials said that the current legislative proposal allows the Space Force to be elevated to its own department if at some point that decision is made in the future. In the meantime, the fate of the Space Force lies with Congress.